Someone who's awake has no fear whatsoever. There's no anxiety, there's no nervousness, they're totally relaxed inside themselves. They're living as yin. In the material world that we live in, everyone basically tries to resist to become successful in life. And we get to learn that at school by resisting to be good at sport, resisting to be good at our education, and it's rewarded. The resistance ends up creating all human beings as yang, which is the outgoing principle. It's the masculine principle. You don't actually meet very many yin human beings, ever. The only ones I've ever met, really, were either awake or around someone who is awake. Yin is your ability to be wide open and receptive, empty, actually. All thinking is yang, because it's resistance. Someone who's awake doesn't think, because they're living, well, at least the body's living as yin. Receptivity. And so the yang that people operate from, which they were trained to do in school, keeps them locked in lower consciousness, constantly fighting with the world, resisting the world, complaining about the world, turning themselves into victims of the world. It's all the same stuff. It's suffering. I studied Taoism for quite a long time. Taoism talks about the yin and the yang. And I think a lot of the study that I did of Taoism led me to be very clear about the requirements for higher consciousness, the requirements for heart, the requirements for enlightenment. You have to become yin. You have to operate from the yin space, which is a non-resistant space. It's a space of receptivity. It's not outgoing, it's a receiving space. And the more yang you are in the material world, the less chance you have of playing this game of higher consciousness. Because yang basically equals lower consciousness. As a human being, if you can be yin, you're setting yourself up for perceiving heart, healing the wounds of your heart, enlightenment. And so someone who lives as yin can come to yang anytime they want, but they don't exist as yang in the world, they exist as yin. And so you come around people who are awake, and there's a sense of being able to fall into them, because there's none of this yang push-out energy. It's all yin, and you can fall into it. And I noticed it around Osho, and I noticed it around the women that were very close to him. Because I've been energy sensitive my whole life, I picked it up pretty quickly, and I was like, wow, this is different. Because up until then, I'd only really met yang in women and men. Women like to think they're yin, but that's a lie they tell themselves. They're all yang, the same as all men. Yin is supposed to be the feminine aspect of it all, the aspect of receptivity. But it's not. When you start accepting life as it is instead of fighting with life, you're moving towards yin. As long as you're fighting life, as long as you're resisting life, you're actually supporting yang, and you're supporting sufferance. This is not something that we learn at school, and so it's not a real popular subject. If you really examine my teaching, I'm more of a Taoist teacher than a Buddhist teacher. Because Taoism is very beautiful, and it doesn't deny life. It's sweet. Buddhism can get you to the same place, but it's not sweet because it's about the denial of life. Accepting everything is the answer. Being okay with everything is the answer. When you have to go to your head constantly to work out what you're doing or justify what you're doing, you're living as yang. When your mind starts going silent, you're living as yin. In not knowing, we're living as yin. In knowing or trying to know, we're living as yang. We're living as the masculine principle. The beauty is in yin, it is not in yang. Because heart is in yin, not in yang. What we find beautiful in the world is yin. Yang is not beautiful.
Is the hunter always yang?
Where you just came from is totally yang. Where I'm coming from is totally yin. Can you feel the difference?
Now I can.
If you listen to Osho, you'll feel that he's also coming from yin. He can go to yang, but he always goes back to yin immediately after, the same as I do. Because this is where awake people live. They live as the nothingness. They don't live as an outgoing process. And to wake up, you have to be like that before awakening. You can't wake up from yang. It's too aggressive, it's too outgoing, it's too ugly. The beauty is in the yin.
You described it before as a receptive space.
You're coming from extreme yang right now.
What is it that I do here now that is so yang?
You don't know how to be forceful in the world and be a nothing. I'm a nothing. I'm not trying to be anything. I don't even care if people hear me or understand me. I'm free. There's something in you that wants to be heard, that wants to be understood. That is yang. Check it out and see.
I see what you're talking about. I can't remember my last question, so apologies if I repeat myself.
Go ahead.
How do we make things happen from yin, or do we just is that just yang to want that, or what?
Just watch me. I'm an example in the world of yin being effective. Now, when awakening first occurred, I was pretty ineffective for about 6 months, because I was just yin staring into space. But then I came out and started being more active in the material world, more yang, to get things happening. But I always revert to yin, and it takes less than a second to get there. Most people live continuous yang because they're frightened of the world. Anxious people are constantly living in yang, as yang. Someone who's awake has no fear whatsoever. There's no anxiety, there's no nervousness, they're totally relaxed inside themselves. They're living as yin.